Howdy, guys, and welcome to Survivor Season 41 and a recap of Episode 8. And welcome to Cliff Notes from somewhere a long way away from this island. But man, oh man, watching this episode, I felt like I was right in the middle of it. Another action-packed episode, so let's get right into it. Now, first of all, last week, just as a little bit of a recap, remember, we lost Sydney at a wild tribal council with powers being used and fake idols being played. Oh, what an episode. This was pretty good as well. So we did lose Sydney at the tribal council, and it certainly appears that the battle lines have been drawn. On one side, you've got former Team Yaze. Well, 3 of the 4 Team Yaze people are left. You've got Xander and Evie and Tiffany all on one side. Everyone else on the other side. That's not good for those 3. They may have survived last week, but being on the short end, what's that they say about winning the battle, but not necessarily the war? Xander, Evie, and Tiffany are definitely in trouble, being just the 3 of those against everyone else. So what's going to happen after this tribal council? That's who's going to be doing what? What kind of repercussions do we see after that crazy tribal of last week? Well, we're getting ready to find out. So right off the bat, we get a confessional going on with Xander, and he's talking about the fact that he learned of that tribal. Deshawn told him that Evie had told Deshawn all about Xander's powers, and Xander's saying, maybe we're not as tight as I thought we were. When you're on the short end like these 3 are, I kind of went through with Big Brother as well. You start seeing the game in a little bit different situation. It's not about who can I protect, who can I save. Remember last week, Xander was ready to play the idol to save other people. You reach a point where you say, I'm in trouble. I just have to do whatever it takes to survive 1 more week, 2 more weeks. And I feel like that's what's happening right now with Xander. And as part of that, Xander is saying, I want to protect Evie, but does she want to protect me? He's trying to justify to himself why it's perfectly fine to cut everyone else in his former Team Yaze loose, I think. So we've got him feeling a little less comfortable about his relationship with Evie. And Liana was former Team Yaze as well, but she realizes that she's burned her bridges with the rest of her former tribe. She's basically chosen we'll call it the Camp Out Alliance. She's basically chosen the Camp Out Alliance over her original team. So Liana's a little bit of a precarious position as well. She's got this new group she's working with, but she hasn't really developed the relationships with them just yet. Remember, she and Chantel seemed pretty tight, but there was a little friction between them already. And then you got the 2 guys that were Team Luvu that are, you would think, going to be working a lot closer together with each other. So Liana's kind of feeling her way through a new situation with these tribes as well. And you get that when you start merging tribes and such. Now we've got Evie, talking about Xander, doing this little confessional saying he's not real sure about Evie. Well, Evie, I admire her gameplay. I absolutely. Evie's trying to smooth over the relationships with everyone else, with Deshawn, everyone else on the other side of the battle lines. She's in trouble. As I mentioned, I think she's in trouble, but she's made a decision. She's going to turn on her 4 other Yaze teammates, tribe mates, in order to protect her game. Is she a floater? Yeah, kind of at this point. She's doing what it takes to stay alive, and so she's ready to cut everyone else loose and try to develop the new relationships. I think she's doing exactly what she has to do at this point of the game. It's not about loyalty. It's all about survivability for Evie at this point. So we've got that. But meanwhile, we've got Tiffany and Xander. They're both doing the same thing. They're trying to throw their former tribe mates under the bus as well. These are 3 desperate people looking for a safe place to land. And what's funny is they're all doing it. Everyone else realizes what they're trying to do. So look at it from one of the other 8 people left on this island. How do you decide who you can trust of this former Team Yaze, who you can't? It's all about thinking who may help you out best going forward, or maybe don't trust any. I mean, just who the bottom 3 people on the totem pole are at this point. Everyone else on the tribe, ought to really be doing everything they can to keep these three isolated from everyone else. Because if I'm someone somewhere in the middle of the pack of the other 8, I'm thinking as long as I can keep the focus on these 3 Team Yaze people, that's 3 more weeks or at least 3 more tribal councils. Where are they? Week number or day number 13 or 14. But I'm thinking that's at least 3 more tribal councils that if things work right, I should be safe as long as I just keep the target on these 3. So we've got that. But here's what's funny as well. Deshawn. Remember last week, Deshawn, there was talk about sending him home. If I recall, at least 1 or 2 of these former Yaze members voted against Deshawn. He's having none of that. He's saying, yeah, they're all trying to kiss up to us now, but they all voted against me. I'm not having any of it. I'm going to send all 3 of them home. So he knows what the pecking order is that he wants in place. He wants nothing to do with them. We'll see what the other people in these tribes may be thinking about that. And in a huge surprise, we saw the 11th castmate. We saw a woman named Heather. Yeah, well, welcome, Heather. She actually had a few things going on this particular episode. But yeah, Heather has not been getting many confessionals, any exposure whatsoever. In some ways, there's a little overlap, I think, between her and Tiffany in terms of the slots that they try to put people in Survivor and other reality shows. And I just feel like Tiffany was getting a little bit more of a thunder and Heather was kind of getting left behind. But we actually do get to see Heather. We see her a lot this episode. We'll talk about that. And now, before we get to the reward challenge, we've got Jeff talking to us saying, let's keep everyone on their toes. A hidden advantage. I'm going to hide under a bench. There's one person not competing because there's 11 tribe mates at this point. One person won't be competing. They're going to be sitting right here. If they're paying attention, they'll find the advantage. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I kind of like Jeff talking to us as the audience and giving us these little inside hints and all. And now we get to spend the next few minutes watching. Will they or won't they discover this hidden advantage? So Jeff has shown us exactly where this thing's going to be hidden. Before we get to the actual reward competition itself, just reward, not immunity at this point in time. And we've got 2 teams of 5. 2 groups of 5. They're drawing rocks to randomly figure out who's on what team. But 2 teams of 5, they have to run up a platform, dive into the water, or some people. I saw in the background Heather made she didn't dive. She made a very awkward little jump into the water. But dive or jump into the water. You then dive down under the water, release some puzzle pieces. Load them up on a boat. Once everyone on your team is on the boat, you pull it over to a platform, pull the puzzle pieces out, and 2 of the 5 members solve a pyramid type puzzle. Picture a bunch of beach balls stacked up to form a pyramid or something. That's basically what you've got. So it's a reward challenge. What is the big reward that they're getting this week? Well, Jeff, why don't you tell us? They're getting grilled cheese sandwiches, which considering that they didn't get any food this season, it's actually pretty good. I mean, it's not exactly the huge spread that we've had in some shows and all of that. But I think if I was out there, I'd do a whole lot for a grilled cheese sandwich. So the winning tribe's getting grilled cheese sandwiches. But here's the thing. One team wins. The other team doesn't win, doesn't get anything. And there's one person that doesn't even get the chance to contribute or have a chance to play. So they draw the rocks, and guess who draws the odd man out rock, or odd woman in this case? Erica. It's the second time in a row. Remember last week, Erica drew the odd rock. She and Nasir got picked on the winning tribe. Erica got sent over to, we'll call it Exile Island. Now she got to break an hourglass and get all kinds of power because of it. Not this week. She's just the odd man out. But she may find that advantage sitting over on the bench, right? That's what we're thinking until Xander volunteers, gives up his spot so that she can play, says, look, she deserves a spot. I'm going to let her play. Let her try to get the food. I'm fine with it. I got to say, I think this is a smart move by Xander. He's trying to build the relationships. And everyone out there is going to say, yeah, he's just kissing up. They probably aren't going to give him much credit for being a nice guy in doing it. They figure there's ulterior motives, and there kind of are, but it doesn't matter. No matter how much they suspect that, at least Erica is going to be just that much less inclined to to put Xander's name down on that list when she's got to put someone's name down for the next tribal council. So I think it was smart on Xander's part. It's just a reward. It's not immunity. So he's not really affecting his game in that manner as well. Now, I think you got to be careful. If you start being too compassionate, too friendly, if you start having too many people that think you're too great a guy, at some point they're going to see that as a threat. They're going to see you as kissing up to the jury, and there may be motivation to get you out the door if you're too friendly. So Xander needs to be a little careful, but at least in this situation, I think it was a good move. Should help him going forward. He doesn't realize, but it then also gives him the opportunity to potentially find this advantage. So while we're watching the two teams play, we're also watching Xander to see if he is smart enough. And the cameramen do a great job of showing him looking around the outside and feeling around. And he looks all over this bench except where the advantage is actually hidden. And as it turns out, no, he doesn't find the advantage. So he didn't get a chance at grilled cheese sandwiches, but he also didn't get an advantage either. But he got a little goodwill he bought by doing what he did. So meanwhile, the two teams are competing. They're actually fairly close. They're both doing pretty well. No one really falters the challenge. Some people definitely dove a lot better than others did. That was for certain. But we've got both teams competing. Eventually, though, the winning team is Danny, Deshawn, Ricard, Erica, and Evie. Evie, at least Evie gets little grilled cheese sandwiches. As problematic as her week is so far, but at least she gets a grilled cheese sandwich. Man, and Danny and Deshawn, they always seem to be on the winning teams when these things happen. But last week, it turned on them. This week, we'll find out. But that's the team that wins. But it's not because of Danny and Deshawn. It's really because of Erica and Evie. And let's be real honest. It's not even because of Erica. It's because of Evie. Evie hops out. She solves this puzzle quicker than the cameraman can really even focus in on her. She just grabs these things and says, here. I know this puzzle. We're done. It looked like it took about 30 seconds or so. Now, I saw on social media, she posted, and she talks about it after the event. She says, no, I studied this one. We did this puzzle before. Was it Fire Island, Exile Island? One of the past seasons, she said, we did it before. And so I studied before I went out the door. Such fantastic information. I tried to study some of the HOH strategy type competitions before I went into Big Brother, just in case something came out. Evie obviously did the same thing for Survivor. She got her golden moment as a result. She's the pride of this tribe. They're all happy to see her. We'll see if that pays off in terms of goodwill going forward. So Evie studied before she went on the island. It pays off. She's getting all kinds of grilled cheese sandwiches as a result. And again, no, Xander didn't find the advantage. Now, did it help Evie that she was the only former Team Yaze member with the winning team that gets to kind of hobnob and hang around with those that are eating all the reward food and all of that grilled cheese sandwiches? And her solving that puzzle so quickly, does that help her or does that make her a target? I don't know. I think when people are filling their bellies, it's easier to laugh and have fun and develop some connection. So I think being on the winning team helps Evie to some point, and she gets to sell her case without any other Team Yaze being Tiffany and Xander, without the two of them being there. So she kind of has the primary attention of everyone else. So that part helps her a little bit. Being so good at the puzzle, does it make her a target? Yeah, probably so. But at this point in time, you just have to worry about this week. So she's looking better at this point. But meanwhile, Xander is happy to vote out Evie. He's talking to the rest of the losing team this week. He said, "Look, y'all heard what Deshawn said about Evie. She wasn't, she told all about my stuff, so I'm happy to turn on her. Don't think there's any loyalty with us guys. I'll vote her out if that's what it takes." So as Evie's trying to work her relationships, Xander's trying to work his relationship. So I guess it comes down to the people on this winning tribe, the people on the losing tribe. Who's going to have the power at the tribal council to maybe influence these votes? And we're going to see. And at the very end of these meals, we see everyone eating well on one side, the other tribe all hungry and looking just pitiful and starved. You'd think they'd been out there for 90 days already, the way some of these these cast mates are looking. But we do see Nasir going off and finding papaya up in the trees. And Nasir, and I don't remember who talks about it. Maybe it's Erica, but I don't know that for certain. Someone talks about that they really don't want to get rid of Nasir just yet because he's doing such a good job of providing around camp. I thought that maybe was going to be the case even when I previewed the season, but I really like Nasir. And when you got a lot of hungry people, bringing a little food to them is not a bad way to go. So Nasir has brought papaya to the losing tribe, and everyone's happy about that. But it does create a little bit of an issue because when the winning tribe comes back, Ricard comes over and says, "Oh, that looks pretty good." Reaches down, grabs a little piece of papaya, and not much. We're talking just a little bite-sized piece of papaya. Tries it, thinks that's wonderful. I'm not sure it would bother me that much, but Chantel, she is not happy. Shan is saying, look, you just got through eating your grilled cheese sandwiches. Leave this food alone. Leave it for us. How dare you come eat this stuff? And she is not happy with them. I kind of get it. I mean, you're starving. You've got a little bit of food, and you're already a little jealous and envious of the other people. Last thing you want them doing, the worst thing that someone could do is come back and gloat about their food and talk about how wonderful it was. But I got to think grabbing some of the food that's sitting on the plate that is all the other people have, grabbing and eating some of that probably isn't that far behind. Personally, not that huge a deal, but everyone's on edge. Everyone's emotions are right there at the at the end because of everything that's been going on, stress-wise, food-wise, everything else. So Shan is not real happy. I got to say, these two were working together so well the first few episodes of the season. And at this point, it just doesn't seem like they're gelling. They just don't trust each other too much, which I think is going to hurt both of them. Working together would have worked better, but they just don't trust each other. So yeah, Shan's a little upset with Ricard. And now it's time for the individual immunity challenge. We had the reward challenge. Now we've got immunity, and we got a little twist on it. It's going to be fun. We'll talk about it. First of all, though, the immunity challenge itself. Balancing on your toes while pushing a block of wood up against your head, pushing it up against the bottom of the frame that you're standing in. And you just hold it there until you're the last person holding it. You're kind of standing on your tiptoes. So those little calf muscles are getting fired up, and the slightest move and you lose it. We've seen this competition before. I think Jeff at one point says that the winner last time was 1 hour, 50 minutes or something. It's pretty hard. This would not be my competition. That would be a tough one because I could see the burn and all that. But it's not going to be as easy as just everyone getting up there and may the best man or woman win, because Jeff's got a little twist for the castmates, and we get to hear about it as well. It'd be kind of a dumb twist if we didn't hear about it, right? But here's the twist. If one person chooses not to play, they'll get a little cup, a little pint of rice, just enough maybe for them for one day. And I never was real clear if it was just for them or then that gets shared amongst the whole tribe. I think if I step out, it's all for me. But if just one person doesn't play, they just get enough rice for one person for one day. But if more people sit out, if enough people sit out, then Jeff says, I'll give y'all enough rice for all of y'all to cover you for 3 days. So we're talking about a big old bag of rice, which, when you don't have anything sitting back at camp, a big old bag of rice sounds pretty good, right? So he's making the offer. But here's the thing. No one knows what that number is. How many people does it take to get the bag of rice? Jeff says, let's negotiate it out. So the negotiations begin with Shan leading the discussion. Shan is certainly one of the most vocal of the castmates so far, whether you're talking strategy, interacting with Jeff. And I don't know, she's a pastor. And so I'm sure she's used to being a very a vocal and outgoing person, which is kind of the perfect type of person you want playing Survivor, right? But she just feels very natural in a little bit of a leadership role, and everyone's letting her do it. So she's the main negotiator with Jeff, trying to figure out how many people. I think she says, how about if 2 people? And Jeff pretty much says, yeah, right. That's not going to happen. But eventually they agree that if 5 people out of the 11, it's a little under half, if 5 people are willing to sit out from this immunity challenge, give up any hope of winning immunity, then everyone gets the rice for 3 days worth of rice. Pretty good deal. But you got to get 5 people. Shan immediately says, "Nah, I'll do it. I'm willing to sit out if at all possible." Nasir also volunteers to sit out. Now, I thought it was interesting. The two people who are the first ones willing to sit out are also the ones that have some advantages that will protect them at tribal council. So they're feeling a little bit safer, probably not feeling quite as vital that they compete and win the immunity challenge. And a little easier for them to volunteer. But the two of them volunteer, but it seems like that's it. They aren't going to be able to get the other three, which is a good sign that everyone else is feeling a lot less comfortable inside this game, which is what I like to see. Now, there's some people, look at Danny, for example. Danny's not going anywhere this week. I know he's got to know that as well. But even if you feel inside, even if you feel you aren't going to tell anyone else because you don't want to sound too cocky, even if you feel that you're absolutely safe, you don't want to let people know that you feel that safe by volunteering to sit out necessarily. So I think we had some of that going on, but it doesn't matter. At the end, you only have two people willing to sit out. Looks like they're not going to get the big old bag of rice. But we get Xander. He already gave up his spot for Erica earlier. He steps up again and says, "Hey, Jeff, let's renegotiate. If we could get this, say 4 people instead of 5. If we could get 4 people, would you still give us those 3 days of rice?" And Jeff, not wanting a good twist to go to waste, right? Yeah, he wanted people to step out, or else, yeah. So he says, "Yeah, I'll do 4. Thank you, Xander. Thank you for volunteering because I really want this twist to happen." So he says, "Yeah, I'll do 4, Xander. No problem at all." And Xander says, I'll be one of those 4. I offered it up, so I'll be one of those 4. Now that's a little gutsy because Xander knew and knows he's on the short end when it comes to voting this next week. And knowing that he has some power, some immunities, and an extra vote, does that make him a bigger target? Perhaps. It certainly makes it a person that easily they could force him to play those idols and advantages to flush them out. So it's a big deal for Xander to volunteer for this. It's showing him really looking more at the long game than the short game by doing this. But Xander volunteers. So now they only need one more person to volunteer. And who do you think that is? Ricard. Yeah, Ricard. Ricard is very interesting this season. I look on social media. There are people that just don't seem to like Ricard. And yet, I got to say, he probably wasn't my top pick at before the season started. I kind of like the way he's playing the game. He isn't playing it perfectly, but he's certainly involving himself. He's certainly trying to stay he's involved in strategies. He's playing a decent game throughout the thing. So yeah, I kind of like watching Ricard play this game. If he wants to be the villain, go for it, my friend. But now Ricard volunteers to be the 4th person, which doesn't make him the villain, makes him the nice guy right now. So he volunteers. So now we've got 4 people: Ricard, Xander, Nasir, and Shan, who are willing to sit out. So everyone else is going to compete to try to win immunity. These 4 are sitting out, but they're all getting a lot of rice when they get back home. Now, that was nice. When Shan volunteered, I don't know, it just almost seemed a little self-serving. I should say. She was volunteering. It made it look like she felt very confident about her position in the game. That's the way I should say it. It gave the appearance that she was very comfortable and confident that she was safe that week, which, again, I think could rub some people the wrong way. Nasir, when he volunteers, he handles it a little bit differently. I really like the way he said it. He said, "Look, I don't feel safe necessarily. I hate to jeopardize my game. I want to compete in every challenge I could, but I'm seeing hungry people here, and I'm willing to give up a little of my game because I just know how hungry some of these people are." He went out of his way to make people understand and just to acknowledge and force it right there in front of them to say, "I'm sacrificing some of my stability in the game to help y'all eat." And I think that was a great move. So there you go. All right. So the immunity challenge starts with the other 8 people. Who's gonna take advantage of the fact that there's only 4 people set out? So I guess 7 people competing. Who's gonna take advantage of that? Well, there's a few that don't, because about half of them are gone within the first minute. It seems like just can't quite get the feel for it. But after that, we still have Danny, Liana, Heather, and Evie. Heather showing up all throughout this episode. Eventually, We've got those four now. Evie needs this. Xander's got some protection with his idol and his extra vote, but Evie certainly needs a little help as well. So she's still up there, and the winner is Evie. She does it. She comes through when she needs to. What a glorious episode for Evie. She basically wins the reward challenge. Now she's won the immunity challenge as well. Good episode for Evie. So she is safe. Xander has an idol, which may make people, are they going to want to flush it out? Perhaps. But they also may be a little nervous about casting all their votes for Xander, knowing that he could easily play this idol. So with that being said, Tiffany in a little bit of situation. She's the only one that doesn't have any protection this particular moment from the old Team Yaze. So not a great situation for Tiffany. And I don't think when it comes right down to it, I don't think Xander's going to use his idol on Tiffany or Evie, either one this week. Last week, willing, not at all this week. There's no way, right? So we've got that. Now, Liana is talking about being disappointed that she can't send Evie home. She's ready to get Evie out. She's ready to make a big move. She's already talked about that. And she wanted to get Evie out, but she knows she can't do it. Evie's got protection. So now the new plan that they've come up with is to get Xander to waste his idol by making him think that he's the target, get him to use his idol to flush it out, and then send Tiffany home instead. I told you Tiffany was going to be in trouble. And then as soon as they get Tiffany out the door, then they'll go ahead and send out Xander and Evie right after the fact. So now you're down to your final 8, and then people can compete with them themselves. Not bad, especially Liana figures she's part of this Camp Out Alliance, which is 4 people, 8 people left. That pretty good odds. Half the people are in your particular alliance. So she thinks she's got it all figured out, but part of it involves trying to get Xander to use that idol to get it flushed out. But they are aware that he's got the idol. They are aware that he could play it. For them, he could play it on Tiffany as well, but he won't. But just to be on the safe side, they're saying, look, let's just split our votes. We'll split them between Tiffany and Xander. There's 8 of us. Go 4 and 4. Whatever happens to that idol, we should be safe. So we should be good. Sounds good, right? To some degree, except when they're talking to Xander, you got to say something. You can't say, yeah, we're splitting our votes. We're sending you or Tiffany up. Although, it's that'd be an interesting strategy just to be so forward. But no, they aren't doing that. They're telling Xander, saying, look, Nasir's got idols and such. We're sending Nasir out the door. And they're trying to convince him that they're safe. I'm not sure they ever bought it. But they do mention Nasir's name, which doesn't sit real well with Nasir. So they and we should have known this, because right after the immunity challenge, we've got Nasir talking about how safe he feels with his idol, and he's not going home tonight. He's good. Man, if there was ever some foreshadowing in this episode, let me introduce you to Nasir, because I thought at that point Nasir's got to be the guy going home. Well, not maybe not, but at least right after that, we hear at least his name being brought up as this potential target when they're talking to Xander. And so we've got that. And sure enough, just a little bit later, when we think the plan's all set to go, Tiffany and Xander, we've got Danny, who's really decided that he wants to split the votes between Nasir and Tiffany instead. And we only have an hour every week for these episodes, so we didn't get to go into quite enough detail. I was a little curious, and I still don't know exactly why Danny would have gone after Nasir as opposed to going after one of the 2 Team Yaze. Because Nasir, even if they don't necessarily trust him completely, it seems like Nasir trusts them a little bit. They're all former Team Luvu. You would think there'd be a little connection there. Why start cutting your team loose this quickly when you've got some other easier targets to go after? So I'm not real sure why Danny was wanting to go after Nasir, but he's thrown it out there as well. So maybe Nasir is not quite as safe as he thinks he is. So he's talking about that. And Deshawn's saying, yeah, I'm fine with this. Well, Shan is not. She's saying, no, we can't. Xander is who we got to worry about. That's who we need to go after. Xander and Tiffany and Evie, they're just too tight no matter what they say. We got to get them out the door. And that creates a little friction because Shan shuts down Deshawn so quickly he doesn't like that. He kind of calls her out a little bit later and says, look, you can't talk to me like that. You aren't even listening to me. So Shan mentions a few times that she needs to kind of change and pay more attention to other people. Again, she's very much the leader. But she said, no, we can't go after Nasir. We got to go after these other two instead. So she's trying to get everyone on board again with Tiffany and Xander, while telling Xander that now we're actually going for Nasir, which Nasir doesn't like. Nasir doesn't like it at all. Doesn't like his name being thrown out there. I wouldn't either. I'd be a little upset, a little furious about that. Just like in Big Brother, sometimes pawns go home, and Nasir's feeling the same way. So they end up switching to Heather, saying, all right, we'll just say we're sending Heather home instead. Yeah, the die's already been cast in some ways, but and in fact, after they start saying that, Xander starts getting a little cautious, a little careful when he's hearing Nasir's name, and then all of a sudden he's hearing Heather's name. He can't figure out why Heather would be the person they want to send out the door. He knows something is up, right? He's a smart player. And now Heather is upset. So we got Nasir upset, we got Xander cautious, and now we got Heather upset because it sounds like the fake target's been shifted to her instead of Nasir. Chantel, as much as she's playing a great game, she's playing a leadership role and everything else, I do think sometimes she gets a little too vocal and a little too forward in terms of leadership and everything. And I think this is one of those situations where she's tried to play a little too much, and she may be putting some targets on her back as a result from Nasir and Heather and even Xander. So she's got to be careful. I like the game she's playing, but she's got to be a little careful. So on to the tribal question. And the big question, I suppose, that everyone's asking in there is the former Team Yaze, are they still together? Is all this stuff throwing each other under the bus? Is that just an act just to try to protect their loyalties to each other, to hide them? Or are they truly calling it quits in terms of that former team? Have they turned on one another? And I have the other question, does it really matter if the other people have 4 votes and 4 votes? Does it really matter? We're about to find out. It seems like this is going to be a much easier, lower emotion type tribal council as compared to last week, until right the last second before Jeff's ready to send everyone off to vote. Heather suddenly decides to speak up. Yay, Heather. Heather decides to speak up, starts whispering. I think she talks to Tiffany first and says, hey, just sit tight, but just trust me. I'm gonna do something. And so she tells Tiffany to trust her. She whispers to Erica, says, hey, are you still sticking with the plan? We don't really know what the plan is. Chaos from our viewpoint as a viewer standpoint, watching all this happen. She tells Erica that she's going to tell Tiffany and Evie and Liana to vote for Nasir instead. So it sounds like Heather's flipping the vote, right? But is she really? Or is this just all an act for the benefit of Xander or others at the campfire, the tribal? Don't know yet. Meanwhile, we've got Shan and Ricard. They're acting all worried. They're telling Xander, saying, you better play your idol. You better play it, Xander. As soon as they started saying that, that's when I thought, well, maybe this was all set up with Heather ahead of time just to get Xander a little nervous and completely confused about what's going on, so he would play his idol. I don't know. I feel like he would have been more likely to play it when everyone was calm and seemed like they all had made up their decision. I think that was the easiest way to flush out the idol. But they're saying, man, Xander, you really need to play his idol because we don't have a clue what's going on. But they're also the words going around now that everyone starts saying, hey, Heather's trying to shift the vote to Nasir. People whispering back and forth, creating all kinds of pandemonium. And in punishment, Chantel is now saying, well, look, let's just vote out Heather. She says that where it appears that Xander should be able to hear. I don't know if I would have said that in front of Xander unless there's something going on I'm not aware of, because if I hear that everyone's maybe leaning towards voting out Heather, well, Xander's much less motivated to play his idol, which was their goal this week, right? So she says it in front of him. So at this point, I have no clue of what's going on at all. And what in the heck is Xander thinking? Now, here's the thing, and I know we're running out of time, so I'll go fast, but here's the thing. I love the fact that we're not getting as much. We're getting some conversations with Jeff and such, but we're not always seeing quite as much information in terms of who's decided what when they get to these tribal councils. I'm watching this tribal council, and I have no clue who is serious, who is just has a charade or ruse going on, who is lying through their teeth, who is actually telling the truth when they're saying who they're going to vote for or who they're turning against. As a viewer, I had no clue what actually was going on during this tribal council. And I like it because it reminds me a little bit of, I don't know, Big Brother and some of our evictions. And it's got to be the same way for all these castmates that are sitting there. They think maybe they got the game figured out, at least for this week. And all of a sudden things blow up around them. They don't know who to believe. They don't know who to trust. They don't know if they're in danger of going home or losing all their loyal relationships. They don't know anything, be it Survivor, be it Big Brother. Those moments just are the most stressful moments you could possibly imagine. So I'm glad that we as a viewer are getting to participate in that stress just a little bit by not having a clue of what's going on either, because I didn't have a clue. Y'all may have known, but I didn't have a clue at that point in time. So we got that. And at the last minute, just as they get ready to go over to do the vote, Ricard goes over and begs Xander, says, Xander, play your idol. You got to play your idol. But Xander chooses not to when they get back. And that was smart. Of everything that happens, Ricard telling Xander that is the one thing that I immediately said, yeah, that's just him just trying to flush the idol. There's nothing to that. Why would he be asking Xander to play his idol if it was true? Just Ricard even saying that almost made, if I was Xander, I think just Ricard asking me in such desperate tones to play it probably would have been enough. Even if I was considering playing it, as soon as he asked me that, I probably would have said, I'm safer that he wouldn't be telling me to do that. So I don't know if that helped Ricard's case or not, but he finishes it off with that. Xander chooses not to use it. He's throwing caution to the wind. He's going to take his chances, see what happens. Now, we didn't get anyone reading a scroll this week to see if there was a potential for safety, which kind of surprised me. There are a few people that I may have considered it if I was one of them, but no one chooses to. And we have the votes themselves. And as it turns out, it's close. We've got votes for Tiffany, for Xander, for Heather, for Nasir. A lot of people's names getting written up there, which means there are going to be repercussions again next week. But as it turns out, with 6 votes, our first jury member, I believe, and going home this week is Tiffany. Yeah, Tiffany, her time has come. She kind of had an emotional thing. She was never completely safe. She was worried quite a few times, but she played. She gave it all she had. But unfortunately, Tiffany is going home with 6 votes being cast against her. We had 2 votes cast for Xander. We had 2 votes cast for Heather, 1 for Nasir. Now, I thought it was funny. Heather, who had told Tiffany, said, just trust me, sit tight, whatever. Heather ends up voting to send Tiffany home. Tiffany ended up voting to send Heather home. So they're sitting right next to each other, and you think maybe there was some kind of something going on with them. No, they voted for each other. So you never know what to think on this. But anyway, so Tiffany's going home. I went back, looked at the votes. We had Xander was the only person that voted for Nasir, which is going to create some. Nasir probably won't be too happy if he figures that out. Nasir and Danny both voted to send Xander out the door. So, turnabout's fair play, right? And then we've got Evie and Tiffany voted to send Heather out, and everyone else voted Tiffany. So there you have it. And I still don't know exactly what was planned, what was spur of the moment, last moment. I'm sure we'll find out first part of next week's episode. But another incredible, crazy tribal council. So again, was this whole chaos at the end of this tribal? Was it all planned? Was it all part of some big act to get the idol flesh? I kind of don't think so. I think this was just Heather playing, feeling like she had a little more power going on. She almost won immunity. She felt like she was more in position. She decided this was her chance to take hold of the reins, maybe help make a big move, flip the tribe, and get something to go on her resume. I think that's how it all started out, and she's lucky it didn't backfire on her. It easily could have, I think. And I do think that now she's going to have some targets on her back. Nasir certainly should not be at all happy with Heather. I'm sure the two of them are going to be going at it. Xander voted against him as well. So Xander voted against Nasir. We'll find out next week. A lot of people voting against each other. So yeah, I think Heather was a little lucky. I think she tried to do something that didn't quite work out. But at the end of the day, all that being said, a member of Team Yaze did go home, which was the goal of Shan and some of the others. So mission partly accomplished. They did not flush the idol. Xander next week still has the idol. If he wants to work with Evie, they could play some games about who's got the idol, who's got the extra vote, things like that. Not sure that's going to happen. I have a feeling they're still going to stay turned against each other, but we'll find out. But until then, guys, a fun episode, but I will be back next week, talk about episode number 9. I'm really enjoying this season. Thank you, Jeff Probst. Thank you, Survivor, for always keeping us entertained with this show. Guys, y'all have a fantastic week. I'll be back next week for episode 9. Until then, SKD 143. Cheers, my friends. Bye.